So we're live now, and you can go ahead and start setting up. Go to the Florida U Judge page, get the URL, because we're live right now.
Okay.
And I'm going to do the same thing.
Okay.
We have 6 minutes before we're going to start.
Okay. You still hear me?
I do. Yep.
Is it Florida U and then YOU spelled out, or just
Yeah,
the
it's
letter
all
U?
it's all spelled out. Florida spelled out, U spelled out, Judge spelled out. We're live now. You can see us there. So I'm going to get
Okay.
the URL for that. And then I'm going to put it on my personal page so that there's 3 people tuning in. We're a little early, as I always come on a couple of minutes before, so that the Facebook and YouTube can notify my subscribers on YouTube and on Florida You Judge, the followers on the um, my personal page. Okay, so we're just waiting on attorney Candy Colucci. This is going to be a really, really interesting broadcast tonight. For those of you who are tuned in already, please share. This is going to be a hot broadcast tonight. I promise you. We're going to take call-ins from the public. We're going to be discussing 2 judicial candidates, Hillsborough County judicial candidates, Monique Scott and Gary Dulgin. We have Chris Ingram with us tonight. Joining us, he wrote 2 recent articles, one published today that I haven't even had a chance to read, but I'm pretty familiar with some of the questions that are raised as to some of the representations that judicial candidate Monique Scott has made in her campaigning, in her literature, in her commercials. We're going to cover that. Chris Ingram, I'm going to see if I can. I'm going to copy the the link to his in the comment section. I'm going to see if I could. This is.
Yeah, I got it right here. I can put it up for you.
You know what? Okay, so I put the link, the first link. That's for yeah, that's the Monique Scott one, and then I'm gonna also put up the Gary Dolgin one. We'll put that so that the readers or the viewers can go ahead and read for themselves, and I want them to comment. We're gonna, like I said, take call-ins to our call-in line, which is 813-221-9700. Write that. Calling is 813-221-9700. We're 3 minutes away from this is gonna be super hot show tonight. We are going to discuss 2 judicial candidates, Gary Dolgin, Monique Scott, about questionable, concerning campaign tactics to get the public voters to vote for them. Thank God for Chris Ingram. Chris Ingram broke the story on Gary Dolgin. Had he not, I wouldn't have found out about it. But for those of you who will be voting in Hillsborough or know somebody that's voting in Hillsborough County, please go ahead and start sharing on your social media sites so that they can follow tonight's broadcast regarding some important information for voters to know about these judicial candidates who are disseminating currently, sending out literature or have already sent out literature or tonight 813-221-9700. to it, Sheldon. 2 minutes away. We will start right on time at 8 o'clock. We're going to be discussing judicial candidates Monique Scott and Gary Dolgin. Waiting on one more guest who's going to be on with us. Defense attorney Candice Colucci. She practices criminal defense and other areas of law. She's read the Gary Dolgin and is up to speed on the issues that we're going to be discussing in reference to judicial candidate Monique Scott, who's running for a county seat. Gary Dolgin is running for a circuit seat. Thanks for joining me tonight, Chris. Thanks, Michelle, also for joining me.
Absolutely.
Happy to be here.
Seven people, and good evening for those of you who have tuned in. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please go ahead and spread the word. Florida, you judge. We are regularly on bringing you good, interesting subject matter topics for you to become more informed as citizens, to make good decisions as to those who you entrust with serving on very important positions in government. Good evening, Haiti Oropesa with Florida You Judge, and I'm joined by Michelle Williams, community activist Michelle Williams, and hi, good to see you. I've never met Chris Ingram, but I have every so often read commentary that you're very you are invited. I think I read something by Spectrum. You're a political analyst, yes?
I was for Beta Design for 10 years.
Okay, and Candice just joined. Hey, Candice, how are you? Good evening.
Hi.
You know, Chris just sent an article, and I've gone ahead and I've linked that in the chat section. And we welcome the public, please, either through the comment section in writing, or you can call in also as we discuss this evening. We're going to start talking about, what would you like to start, Chris? They're your articles. You broke them for us as a journalist. And so which would you like to start? Gary Dolgin is on the docket first, or is Monique Scott, do we call her on the docket first?
I'm fine with either one. I guess since I wrote the one about Gary, let's start with the one about Gary Dolgin.
Let's do that.
Gary Dolgin is a Hillsborough County attorney who has run for various different judicial seats over the last 10 years or so, I would say. I believe this is his 5th time running for judge. He's been unsuccessful in his previous 4 attempts. And Gary is an interesting character, and I've known him for about, 8 or 10 years now. And I would just say, yeah, he's a very interesting character. I'm not sure that Gary has a real strong sense of self-awareness. He has an oddity about him that I think most people find a little bit off-putting. But look, at the end of the day, that's neither here nor there. The real issue as it relates to his campaign and his candidacy for a seat on the judicial bench in Hillsborough County in the 13th District is that he's running paid mailing advertisements through his campaign that are some of the most shameless examples of pandering that I've seen from certainly a judicial candidate in Florida. And of course, your audience is probably very well aware of the judicial canons that are what regulate how people who are on the bench and those who seek to be on the bench run their political campaigns. And they're very restrictive in nature. You basically, as a judicial candidate in the state of Florida, those canons say you can't really say much about anything other than kind of your background, your resume, who you are, and what a great guy you are. Gary Dolgin has found a way, and I think in his mind, to get around those canons and injecting politics, what I would say is very divisive politics into his race. And he's doing that by talking about Black Lives Matter. And he's doing it by talking about, on the contrary, and appealing to a completely different side of the electorate in his pandering, has mailings out there to talk about how he's a strict constitutional conservative and that he won't legislate from the bench. I take that back. He didn't say conservative. He's implying that he's a conservative by saying he's a strict constitutionalist and he will not legislate from the bench. Those are red meat buzzwords for conservative Republican voters, of which Gary Dulgin absolutely is not. He is an extreme partisan Democrat. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you're running for judge, you need to set that type of partisanship aside. Gary is not doing that. He's actually injecting it, but he's doing it in a manner that is very disingenuous, because he certainly is not a conservative. He's not a Republican. I doubt whether he will be a constitutionalist. And I think that Gary very much would likely actually legislate from the bench, which is contrary to what he says in that mail piece. And if you look at my column on Florida Free Press and just do a search for the words Dolgin, D-O-G-L-I-N, it'll come up, and you'll see examples of those two mailings that he put out. One where he has this quote from Hillsborough County Commission Chairman Les Miller, who is a black man who apparently endorsed Gary Dulgin when he was running for a different judicial group. He got that endorsement and then switched to a different judicial group, but maintained the endorsement that Les Miller said to him about a previous group that he was running for. I understand that Les Miller is furious about that. He's, once again, very disingenuous of Gary to do that. And he talks about Black Lives Matter, which no matter where you come down on whether you support the Black Lives Matter movement or not, you cannot argue that it is a very divisive and politically charged subject today. And that is, according to Travis Horn, who's a person who filed a complaint with the Florida bar, a violation of those judicial canons, and it's got Gary Dulgin in some hot water. And as Ricky Ricardo used to say, he's got some splaining to do.
So true.
So where do we, Chris? So Chris, as the voters proceed forward, and with this information just coming very late in the game, I mean, the mailers are already out. Ballots, early voting has already, already begun. People are voting by mail. So how do we continue as concerned citizens that we are? You a journalist, Haiti is an attorney. I'm not sure. Are you an attorney also?
Yes.
No.
Yeah,
I am.
And okay, yeah, and the activists, so how do we continue to get this such great information out? Because a lot of times people don't read, get on social media. I try to use my platform as often as I can. To make sure. So I just want to know, what can we continue to do? Because like, I read that piece and I was just like, Chris, I was like, when I read it, I was just like, what, Gary?
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah, I mean, and let me ask you a question. So when you read that, I don't know what your political leanings are, but did you see that he was trying to pander to one section of the electorate in one of those mailings, and then a complete opposite section of the electorate in the other?
Well, let me tell you what I seen. I live in Seminole Heights. So the mailers that we got over here in Seminole Heights is the pretty blonde haired white lady, you know what I'm saying? Saying how Gary rescued her kids and everything. And then out in South Tampa, you got the guy holding the fish, I guess pandering to the Republican Party. And then in the black community, he got Les Miller on it. Yeah. So I'm just like, wait a minute, before all of this came out, you got to get up faster than the devil to fool Michelle Williams.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You're exactly right.
He has three different mailers out there that's very, very concerning to me.
And look, in Gary's defense, political candidates and campaigns very frequently send different messages to different targeted mailing groups. They also send different messages when they advertise on one radio station versus another radio station, or when they advertise on HGTV versus the nightly local news. There are different segments, different demographic groups that each one of those channels has an abundance of, and that might be where that candidate wants to target. Gary also, in that mailing piece where it has the white guy with the ball cap and holding up the big fish, looking like, Mr. Good.
All right, let's show that.
Good buddy redneck. Yeah, pull it up. In that one, yeah, you see he's holding up that tarp in there. He's got his hat, his beard, and his sunglasses. He's very much pandering, and they also had, you can't see it there because of the graphic, but below it, it says, watch our ad on Fox News Channel. Now, you'll notice, again, you can't see it right there, but mysteriously missing in the ad, in the mail piece that Gary sends out to the black community, is no mention of any ads airing on Fox News Channel.
Wait,
I think we may have lost a little bit of Haiti. So go.
Okay, so No. Now you can see it.
Yeah, you can see it there.
Okay, we can see it. But here's what
see our commercial on Fox News.
If you want to just go back to the kind of beginning, just so if we've got viewers, they're understanding kind of where we're coming from or what the situation is. So let's just start with this. This Gary Dulgin.
Yes.
What does he physically look like? Are either of those ads him?
No, he's not pictured in any of those mail pieces, I don't believe.
Okay, so I am beginning, the very beginning part of it is the first ad that I had seen that he has sent out as a mailer. It has Les Miller on it, but if I had no idea who that was, this to me, just aesthetically looking at it, right? Aesthetically looking at it, to me means that Gary Dolgin, when I first look at it, is a Black man who gets the Black Lives Matter movement. Yeah. And yes, Les Miller may have said that, but nothing to me makes it clear. This is my part about, yes, there's a deeper side of this that seems like there is obviously a contrived meaning behind the difference in ads, but just physically looking at it to me is disturbing, because if I was talking about, which as attorneys, we have a very high standard, and I know that most people don't know this, like, the advertising part of the Florida bar is the biggest part of what they stress the most. It is massive. And our rules are, especially in Florida alone, are extremely regulated. And so we have an obligation to make sure that we don't misrepresent anything to the public. And if it looks like a duck, acts like a duck, it's a duck. That's what the bar says. Like, the first question is, what would a person receiving the ad have believed about the ad? So that just already to me is disturbing, because if I'm seeing that ad, the very first thing I think about is he's a Black man who is a supporter of Black Lives Matter. And then when I see the other ad that we put up, he is a white man that fishes. Okay, that's the other part that is disturbing to me about it. It's very stereotypical to me, like just looking at it. He's a white man who fishes, who saves people. So you've got two different types of people who've received it, who we believe they've been targeted in a certain way, depending on demographics or any of the other things. And now believe, if you put them in the same room, that this Gary man is two different people. They have no idea who he is.
Okay, so we have Elvis Piggott has weighed in. He's commented that his weigh in is Gary's awful and disrespectful.
Let me throw in, Haiti. Elvis actually is referenced in my column. I don't know Elvis, but I did get a hold of his social media, I believe it was his Facebook posting, where he took issue as a Black man with Gary Dulgin's pandering to the Black community by featuring Les Miller, who's the Black County Commissioner, who Candace very accurately says, probably 99% of voters don't know what Gary Dulgin looks like or what color his skin is. And so it can be misleading that if they didn't recognize that was Les Miller, the Black man whose quote was next to his picture on that mail piece, they would know it and may assume that Gary Dulgin is in fact Black. But
and you know what?
Elvis made point of this, and he was very incensed that Gary is using these Black Lives Matter and other racially stereotypical types of ways to appeal to Black voters, and I think he was very insulted by that.
Had it not been for Elvis Piggott, I wouldn't have even known about your story, Chris. So just wanted to make mention of that. Okay, Candace.
I can't agree more. Like, I didn't know who he was. I have no problem saying that. And when I saw the ad, I wouldn't even have thought twice that he was not a Black man in that picture. Never in a million years would I have thought that someone sends out a flyer of vote for me or whatever it is, and you have a picture of somebody else on there. Like, that would be weird, right? If all of a sudden if I'm saying vote for Candace Colucci and I send you a flyer and it has Oprah on the front, you're gonna automatically, the first thing in your head's gonna be, she's not Oprah, because you would think someone would send a flyer saying vote for me and you put a picture of somebody else there. You may put quotes, sure, but the photo alone to me is enough that I would say it's absolutely a misrepresentation. And then finding out that there's different versions going to different communities, which, like, just like you said, Chris, which you kind of hit on that very well, is that is part of the process. You're targeting different demographics. We get that. But if the ad in itself is misleading and intentionally produced in a way to mislead somebody to believe you're somebody else who's done something else, is very disturbing to me.
Well, and Candace, I'm only familiar with those canons that regulate what judicial candidates can do when they run for office, and you probably know them those rules better than I do. But I do find that it's highly unusual what Gary Dulgin did in making this so divisive, so partisan. Clearly, the black ad, the ad with Les Miller, is an ad that's targeted to black voters. Clearly, the one with the Bubba, the NASCAR guy holding the fish in his ball cap with the UPS store logo on it, which is probably some sort of trademark violation. But Gary is clearly trying to divide and conquer through the use of very subtle, albeit to most observers of politics, obvious attempts to appeal and to divide based on political ideology. He divided based on where he sent those messages, because he's not sending that Bubba with the fish message to black voting precincts, and he's not sending the Les Miller, the black county commissioner who endorsed him while he was running for a different judge group position. He's not sending that to South Tampa, which has a preponderance of white voters. And so Gary is clearly using partisan and highly charged political issues in this race. And as Travis Horn, the complainant to the bar, said, these are issues that are probably against those judicial canons, and Gary should be held accountable for them. An interesting point, I don't know if you know this or not, but Travis, who is himself a non-practicing attorney, told me that in his researching how to file this complaint, he discovered that while he can make that complaint, the bar will actually not do anything to Gary unless he wins his race. And then they come in and do an investigation and will find if he did anything wrong or not. And then I guess sanction or penalize him accordingly, but only if he is fortunate enough to win, which more than likely won't happen.
And you know what? Just to stay on that point, because let's say that happens and that once he wins and the JQC does investigate and ultimately, let's say they can impose the highest sanctions would be removal from office. So if that happens, guess what? Guess who appoints then a replacement for that seat?
The governor.
The governor. Right. So
and then the people lose their voice.
Yeah. That's right. So this show's called Florida You Judge. Since the inception of the creation of Florida You Judge, which it first started as a blog, it's still there, FloridaYouJudge.com. That's what it's called, Florida You Judge. We put out facts, and the voters, you decide. We're not trying to give you our opinions and force our opinions.
Is Haiti breaking up for you guys?
Yeah,
a little bit.
Okay. So what she's trying to say, and I'll jump in and explain it, is that obviously this is the attempt of this platform is to get that information out, just like Michelle was saying. How do we get it out there about the things that we find, to put it out to the public that they can absorb it in a way that's like, here are the facts. Even though we may have different opinions about it, it's for you to have this so you can judge. It's really what she's trying to say there. So
well, that's a great question that Michelle asked earlier. And I would just say, look, do your part as a citizen to be informed, number one. Number two, if you feel so compelled, share information that is legitimate and credible that you come across, and share it with your friends and your neighbors, your family, your people on your social media, those kinds of things. People who want to be informed about these races will find a way to get information. The judicial races, more than any other races in public office in the state of Florida, are the hardest to decide on, because in most cases, the judicial candidates follow the rules, and they're basically limited by those canons to only talk about their resume and what a great guy or gal that they are. They can't say, I support X, Y, or Z. They can't give their position on the death penalty. They can't talk about whether or not they're going to be a law and order kind of judge or a reformist kind of a judge. And so voters are really limited to the biographical information that those campaigns put out, and then what information that is shared with them by others who are in the know, whether it's through a news report like mine, or I find that talking to lawyers is really the best way to find out who the best candidates are on judicial races. Now, you might have to dig a little bit when you talk to those lawyers and find out what's their particular bent, and then use a filter when you listen to them. But the lawyers, by and large, most lawyers want good judges on the bench. And I talked to several lawyers over the last couple of days about Gary and also about Monique. And to a T, every single one of them said, you know, I might have issues with this person's ideology, or I might have issues with the fact that, you know, Monique has only been a practicing attorney for 6 years, and she is elected as a judge, is going to be, you know, issuing rulings and dealing with other lawyers and their clients, and who might be 20 or 30 years to her senior, and it's going to be awkward and odd. And, you know, but they say, look, put aside all of those kind of ancillary factors. The matter really should be, is this person honest? Will they be fair? Will they be, in fact, judicious? And I think in the case of both Gary Dulgin and Monique Scott, the concern that I picked up from lawyers in the Hillsborough County bar community is that neither one of them are demonstrating through their actions as candidates that they would be good, fair jurists.
Listen, before...
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Michelle. I'm just going to say, because I want the public to know that in fairness, I did reach out to Gary Dolgin and advised him that tonight we were going to talk about this issue and that he can call in and what the call-in number was. So he's being given fairness to address this. We're letting the public know the information. They can judge for themselves. There's been no finding that he broken whatever made, given the opportunity. He can call after tonight, this week, and address this that we're bringing forth to the community. And I've also given and text exchanged with Monique Scott as to what we're about to discuss. Florida, you judge. We're putting forth facts. Call in and weigh in and tell us what you think. What you think is Gary pandering? Is he not? When he does what Chris has articulated and presented, that as far as his mailers go. Let's get into Monique Scott. Talk to us about Monique Scott. You published an article today, Chris, and I want to let Michelle say what she was about to say when I...
And I do think, Haiti, that you should pull up a picture. There's one of Gary on one of these websites. I think that the public should see what it looks like. I think that would be a good start.
Okay,
we'll come back
Michelle.
to it, but I think that you should definitely find it. But I think just to comment on what Chris was saying, which I think was very, very well stated, is that it's hard for us to figure out what facts have been manipulated or kept out in order for when someone's running for an office, right? So I think the point that was really great was looking at and saying, hey, we can at least see how they're trying to run, what those advertisements look like. If they're being dishonest in that, then that should maybe be indicative of how their behavior will be if they're doing it during just the election process. So I thought that was really well said. But yes.
Michelle.
Just real quick. Not only is it concerning about what Gary Dolgin has done and the stunt that Monique Scott has pulled, it is also disingenuous for any candidate in any race of regardless of their nationality or the color of their skin. It's always disingenuous when you have someone that panders the black vote. And my question is the reason why I don't go to a lot of the Candy Low 10 conversations, because see, I'm that radical activist that's gonna get in your face and ask you, where the hell have you been at?
Where have you been?
Votes, but I ain't seen you to not one church meeting. I ain't seen you to not one community meeting. I didn't see you at no protest. I didn't see you at nothing. I didn't see you downtown fighting in no courtroom doing a pro bono case. I have not seen you. So it's just not Gary Dolgin is doing things. It's just that Monique Scott is lying about her former employment with the Tampa Police Department. We got state Senate races. We have, tax collector. We have all these people that we have never seen and heard of, and all of a sudden, the black race is their best friend. Let me tell you something. Not only do you got to get up before the devil to fool Michelle Williams, you got to be in God's bosom to think you're going to come and be able to lie to me.
Okay, wait, Michelle.
I love it.
So Michelle, I missed this part of it, but you must love this. And I can only imagine if he was anywhere near you. That is also very disturbing to me. I swear when I saw the ad, I thought he was black. First of all, if you're an African-American black running for an office, you don't have to say, I'm black. Just so you guys know, I'm black. So, and you wouldn't do that. So what is interesting about the ad, just the last note that I could only imagine if he was anywhere near you, is the comment that's written on here is when he uses Les Miller, who is black, so everyone thinks that now this candidate's black. It says Gary Dolgin knows that Black Lives Matter and in period, and literally italicized with an exclamation mark, it says, he gets it.
See,
how does he get it?
And that's the part that got me. He gets it. What the hell?
We're about to talk about Monique Scott.
Yeah.
What does he get?
I know.
What did Gary Dulgin get?
He gets it.
What does he get? You know, because again, Gary says, as he panders Les Miller on this mailer that has went out to probably a couple thousand, Black residents, you know what I'm saying, in the last week. Gary Dulgin gets it. What is he getting? Is he getting all of the miscarriages of justice that have happened to Black and brown people? Has he getting the racial discrimination that has happened to brown people? Has he gotten the housing discrimination? Has he got the economic deferment of our tax dollars? Has he got the fact that we have more than 22 failing schools in East Tampa? Has Gary Dulgin got all of these things? Because guess what? The last time I checked, I know I had an issue out in Odessa, Keystone, Odessa, with the racist Tom Adderhole about saying that he doesn't want Black, gays, or Jews living out in Keystone, Odessa. And I stepped to Gary Dulgin about this, and Gary says, well, Michelle, I don't think that Tom would say that. So I say, are you friends with him?
Oh.
Are you friends with him? I don't care how you want me to do it. You could either ask me to raise my right hand or stand on the stack of Bibles. I know what Gary Dulgin told me. I've expressed this several times to my dear friend, Haiti Odepressa. I told her, Haiti, is something about this man that I don't kind of trust. Like, there are residents right now that are living out in Odessa watching this. They're watching this. And they know the relationship. That's like I say, he has pandered the north, the south, the east, and the west of Hillsborough County. He has pandered the four winds, as my mama would say. He's pandered the four winds in different marketing things. Now, let me tell you something. Now, being the devil's advocate right now, this is not personal. And if Gary's watching this, I want him to know this ain't personal. This is business. This is business that I'm tired of business being the same business. With Blacks and brown people can't afford to continue on business as usual. We cannot afford for one more judge to sit on that bench and know damn well that they're getting ready to rule down a sentence on a Black or brown person and over sentence them. We can't afford a Monique Scott, a former prosecutor who went light on Hispanics but made sure that she punished Blacks. No, I'm sorry. Let me tell you something. Boo Boo Kitty and Dum Dum, I'm sorry, I ain't got time for it.
Speaking of Monique Scott, let's go ahead and Chris. I hear some sirens, some police sirens in the background. Let's go ahead and start talking about Monique Scott. You published an article today.
It's safe to say that Monique Scott is probably not frontline familiar with the sound of a police siren, because while it is true that in her background and that on her campaign mailing and her advertisement, rather, it's on a video, that she notes that she was a Tampa Police Department police officer. She also, interestingly and rather strangely, on that screenshot from her video that was off of her campaign's Facebook page, it says she was a formal teacher and a formal TBD police officer, which just tells me she and her campaign surrogates are really bad at reviewing their advertisements, because I think she meant former, not formal.
Let's tell everyone who's watching, so they know where you're kind of going.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we're going to start So who's Monique Scott?
So the story is this: Monique Scott is a young lady who's an attorney in Hillsborough County. She has been a practicing attorney for about 6 years. She worked for the Hillsborough County State Attorney's Office. I believe she tried some cases there, to her credit, but in 6 years, you can't try that many cases. And she also, in her background before, I believe before becoming an attorney, for a very brief time, was a Tampa Police Department police officer. She went through the police academy, and within 1 week of graduating from the police academy, after she was sworn in, given a gun and a badge, and going through a conditioning process. After you get out of the police academy, the city of Tampa has all of its officers in what they call like a holding pattern, where they do some training so that they learn all of the internal ins and outs and do's and don'ts that are unique to the Tampa Police Department that they don't learn from the state's police academy. So she worked for the Tampa Police Department for 1 week after graduating from the police academy, and then she was let go. She was fired. She was terminated from her employment because she has a health condition. That health condition is that she occasionally has seizures. And the police department standards say if you have seizures, you probably shouldn't be driving a vehicle at a high rate of speed pursuing a fleeing subject. You shouldn't be holding a gun, because at any time while you're holding that gun, you could start to have a seizure and start shooting innocent people, unbeknownst to you. So it's unfortunate for Monique, but she has this condition. And after she was hired, she had to prove that, the condition was not going to in any way affect her employ, and she was not able to do so. A Tampa doctor hired by the Tampa Police Department determined that her condition prohibited her from being able to serve as a sworn police officer.
Wait. I want to, because now there's discussion in the comment section, and Norman Harris, who's an attorney, a local attorney, said he wants to weigh in and say she was a sworn officer. Let's go ahead and be factual.
Hold on. I said that. I totally
understand.
Acknowledge that. I'm not trying to take anything away from her.
Whoa. Let me say.
Speak for the black race. He's a loser. Norman Harris is a loser.
Listen, Michelle. I just wanted to point this out, that to give facts. You did say that, and that is the truth. Yeah. But let's get a little bit deeper into the facts.
Yeah. Okay. So she was a sworn officer.
Wait, Chris, hold on. I have something to say. Give me a chance here. She was sworn in, and as you said, Chris, she went into holdover training, meaning for 6 days between September 18th, 2006 to September 25th, 2006, 6 days, she was in a classroom training, didn't go into the field, 6 days training in a classroom before she was told you can't serve here because of your medical condition.
That's right.
So for Norman Harris, sir, for you to come on and try to, I want you to call in, Norman, 813-221-97. If you're trying to get on the bandwagon with Monique Scott to tell the public that she was an officer, then you are being complicit in this misrepresentation.
Yes.
Let's hear this.
Let's real quick, because we do what we want to do, just like we were talking about before, is putting the information out there so everyone can get it. Then we have no problem.
You know what? And Norman thinks this is a laughing matter. Norman Harris thinks that it's a laughing matter for a judicial canon that is the judicial candidate that is governed by a canon. There has to be candor, honesty, and integrity. That is what this woman is telling. And if you think that this is funny, I'm concerned about you, Norman. Okay? This is a woman who is on her flyer after saying she was a former law enforcement officer. No, that is not true.
Well, wait, hold on.
She's saying she's going to apply
yes, that's it.
Hold on.
She is a sworn officer. So what Norman's saying is true. And the point here that let Chris finish, but let's put a pin in what Norman's saying, because
in my article on the Tampa Free Press, in no way, shape, or form do I suggest that she is flat out lying. She was, in fact, a sworn law enforcement officer for 1 week. To the best of my knowledge, in that 1 week, she did nothing but sit in the classroom until the time in which they told her, we can't allow you to be a police officer because of your medical condition, and they fired her. Okay,
Chris, that's your opinion.
But no, that's true. She was a sworn officer.
Listen, I know, but she never served.
The matter is, the important thing is
that we want to watch the
saying that you were a police officer in your campaign materials without elaborating that she was only a police officer for 1 week. She's otherwise suggesting that she has this great wealth of experience as a police officer that she's going to bring to the bench as a judge, which is completely false. I made the analogy that it's akin to my saying that I studied at Harvard because I read a textbook in the school's library.
Chris, she was a sworn officer, okay?
Yes, she was.
Did she have the ability to arrest anybody while she was in training?
Well, if you're a sworn officer in the state of Florida, you can arrest someone. Whether Tampa Police Department's protocols actually allow them to go out on the street and arrest someone prior to passing all of their training and all their internal stuff, probably not. But by law, as a sworn officer, you have arrest powers.
Okay, fine. So let's finish it. Let him finish.
Yeah. Holdover, so she didn't have the ability to do anything.
Arguably. Arguably. So let's finish the facts so then the people can understand where we're going, and then we'll go to the other thing, because the part that's so important here,
She said it's true. What Elvis is saying is true. She said she was on the streets. That's true.
So but let's finish it. So what Chris was saying was, so obviously, so I'm learning of this now, just like as most of the people have. I've got a little bit of information before. I know who Monique Scott is. So that being said, is that she has now put out into advertisements, and I'm sure Haiti will show some of them and explain some of them, is that what she has put out into the advertisement is that she was an officer, she was a police officer, she was a sworn officer, and I guess Haiti has stated that there has been some comments or maybe on a video that said that she was in the streets as a police officer. Yes. I haven't seen them all, and so what I would say is, here's what I will say about after reading Chris's article and understanding what Haiti has said. Here is what I feel is the issue. Now, we always have to go back to our ethic codes, as I was explaining for the Florida bar, is we cannot put things out there that are misrepresenting, right? So that's what the real issue really comes down to, is there is a difference between truth and integrity, right? They're two different things. So you can be truthful, but be lacking integrity, because integrity is truth and morals, right? So the question really comes down to, is her statement, if she said in the streets, that's not true. It's a flat out lie, right? So she wasn't in the streets. But if she's saying in an advertisement that I am a former police officer, I was a law enforcement officer, all of those things, we know that there is truth there, right? There's a truth because she was sworn in for however many days it was. But it lacks the integrity, because every single person, we all know that the intent of putting that statement out there is for people to absorb it. And what is the first thing we know everyone's going to think? That she is someone who served and protected our streets, that she did it for a number of time. She has gained a level of respect because she spent time defending us. And she has now earned her stripes. And that's someone I want to support, is someone who was willing to do the dirty work for pennies, to be paid way under that they deserve to be paid, like all of those things.
Candy, do citizens have arrest power?
You could do a citizen arrest. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know what? As sworn as she was in a holdover training position in a classroom, and she could not have at that time acted as a police officer, even though she was sworn. It's misleading. Whether it's an outright lie or misleading, there's integrity lacking there. If somebody, Norman Harris, call in 813-221-9700.
And that's the thing is, no, we haven't even gotten into anything more. It's kind of going back to what Chris was saying about the fact is that when people are looking at this, they may not know Monique Scott and they may not get all of the facts and stuff. But the thing is like, that's what you're portraying out to someone, and anybody listening to it. And Norman, nobody, come on, guys, like seriously, guys, you guys. There's nobody who's listening to that. If you put 100 people in one room and I said her ad says she's a police officer, and then I told you, and by the way, she was technically it for a week and never on the street, and then she was fired for a medical reason allegedly. Is that what you assumed by the statement? Every single person in that room would go, dude, no. Like obviously you're trying to misinterpret the situation to me. So I felt a certain type of way by that ad that you knew was untrue, right? You knew that was untrue. And I could tell what I did see, and make no mistake, the facts of what happened to her is from my reading of it was that she was sworn in, which is very sad to think about. She gets sworn in as a police officer, and then they find out that she had prior seizures. She's been diagnosed as having epilepsy, and then she is told that she cannot serve as a police officer because she has had these prior seizures. And it seems like from the facts of what was in her lawsuit she filed against the city of Tampa was that it didn't seem to be that big of an issue on paper, that she had the seizures years prior before. There'd been two of them, and she said, the medication I'm taking does not affect my daily life. So I would say from a heart-wrenching side of her is that she made an attempt to be an officer, had passed the exam, and had planned on doing it, and somebody else stopped that. And those facts are true. They're not misleading, and that's what should be sent out there. But for her to purposely say, I want to put it as I was this officer, that's not what the story is. The story is that you really did have all the great reasoning and want behind it, and you planned on doing it, which I commend that immensely. And it breaks my heart to think that they would turn around and take that from her. Imagine being sworn in one day, so excited, telling your family, friends, or whatever, and then all of a sudden they rip it from her. And those are the true facts of it that I think would have almost been made, like put the facts out there to them and figure out how you're going to make some change of that. If you think that you were treated unfairly, maybe that should be something you do later on. But that wasn't the intent of the statement at all. The intent of the statement was for the public to believe that she had actually been an officer who engaged in duty to render the type of respect that comes with someone saying, I am a police officer who has done duty and has given back to the community, you know,
and risk their life.
And the judicial candidate under where Monique Scott falls is the judicial candidate conduct required that judicial candidates have candor and be truthful about their experience and qualification. The manner in which Monique Scott details her law enforcement background is a game of words that have hidden meaning. She wants the voters to believe that she has a greater experience than she really did or does. A person who lacks candor to this type of degree should not be a judge. Point blank, period.
You know what? Before this, before this came to light, because when Elvis talked about it, that I promise you, I had seen her commercial, and in my mind, what was conjured in my mind, I saw a woman in uniform, police uniform, in the street as a law enforcement officer, arresting people, reading them their rights, doing investigation. That's what was conjured up in my mind. So when this comes to light now, I feel like I was deceived.
You were.
That's how I feel.
You were.
And not to just, and that was the thing is like, I believe in saying what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. Let's all be human and say that's wrong, right? So that's how I look at things and say, listen, the girl on paper, she was a state attorney, which is in no form or fashion is an easy thing to do. What she does, it comes with its own struggles. It means you're doing public service. You're trying to get people off the streets that you think shouldn't be there. And it's not that easy. And then to have before that wanted to be a police officer, she obviously is someone who wants to dedicate her life to representing communities in a form or fashion to protect them from people's nefarious actions. That's what's clear.
You know, Candy, listen. If I would have seen a commercial where she said, listen, my heart, I wanted to serve the public.
Yeah, I keep on trying.
Let me finish. In 2006, my heart was to serve the public. I wanted to go out. Even if I had to risk my life, I wanted to protect and serve. And unfortunately, I took 6 months, which is a huge sacrifice, in a police academy.
Oh, yeah.
To learn how to do that well. I was sworn in, and unfortunately, it was heartbreaking for me that then I was not allowed to do something that I felt passionate about. You know what? That would have gotten me. She would have been so much better having made that representation than saying I was a former police officer.
Haiti, I agree with you. I agree with you, Haiti. But here's one thing: the way that you said you would have preferred to have heard it, you only would have preferred to have heard that now that you know that the way she tried to misrepresent herself was a misrepresentation, and she just was banking on that she wouldn't get caught.
Let me tell you something. The last I checked, okay, public information request, as we did, when you fill out the application to become a police officer, it has your medical history on there. That's what we need to be pulling. If we want to debunk or dispel anything that she may have lied on her police application, that's what we should find out. Because on that application, it asks you to list any medications that you're taking, even over the counter, for simple migraine headaches, aches and pains, and all this stuff. We need to find out what she put on the application. That's
you know,
don't lie at.
Norman Harris says that this conversation we're having is a matter of opinion, not facts. Okay, people interpret as they choose. Right, Norman. It appears that you play fast and loose with facts. I see differently and stand by my belief. That's fine. You had an opportunity here. We bring your opinion in as well.
What are his beliefs? What are
I don't know.
I'm sorry.
I don't know what his beliefs are.
If I could just say something, I think what he's wrong about is we're not really arguing the facts. The fact of the matter is she was a police officer sitting behind a desk, learning internal policies after she got out of the police academy for 1 week, and then she was terminated for health reasons. She'd never walked the streets of Tampa and chased down bad guys. I don't think she wrote so much as a parking ticket. And while, yes, she was in fact a sworn Tampa police officer and got a paycheck from the Tampa Police Department for 1 week, she is not the type of police officer that is conjured up in the minds of 99.9% of people when you say, I was a police officer. They don't think you were a police officer sitting behind a desk doing post-academy training for a week, and that qualifies you as someone who actually walked a beat. So we're not arguing facts. We're not arguing facts, Norman. We're not arguing facts. We're arguing interpretation.
That's like if I were to pass the bar, right? The Florida bar says, go, you can practice law, and I never practiced one case.
Right.
I never. Should I say that, or should I say, oh, I used to practice law, I was a former lawyer? I don't know. It's misleading at best. I said that to her.
It's very misleading. It's deceitful.
That's what we heard about most politicians, is how many of them actually really never practiced law, but ended up getting a license and then became a career politician. They're like, but I'm a lawyer. So let's let
Rosa Whitehead. Truth don't change because Norman's dumb ASS don't believe it.
Well, I don't know what Norman's belief is. I mean, the thing is like, first of all, it's almost, we're putting what we have learned about the facts. If somebody has any facts that are different, they're more than welcome to share them. The facts, as they have said, is I don't know if in that week she did anything. So I'm hearing there's this holdover where she didn't do anything. And I think that Haiti gave her an opportunity to say something and it hadn't been corrected. And I think I could see that a couple of things that I saw from Haiti is that I think she's working in a personal injury office right now. And on that website, she had specifically stated that she was sworn in as an officer. It seemed like it was more clear about the fact that she was sworn as an officer and never served. But I would 100% say that when I saw the ads and saw that she was running, and I read the statement that said she was a former law enforcement officer, I kind of was like, I'm like, when did she do that? I was like, I know her. She's gorgeous and young. And I was thinking, when was she a police officer and then was an attorney? Usually when that happens, it's later on in your life. If you're going to do it, you have a career as a police officer. So I would say 100% that I'm the general public, who I would say also as an attorney, I'm also educated as a general public. And I would say, I looked at that and thought in my head was, she had this extensive service. And did she say she had the extensive service? Not that I know of, but I guess Haiti says maybe she said she worked the streets. But the point is, everyone knows when you read it, it was a play on you played on the fact that you knew that it was going to misrepresent the meaning of it to people. And here we go back to the fact of, as attorneys, because that's it, right? The judge, running for judge is one thing and there's a separate set of rules, but never forget that as an attorney, our obligation to the public, to the general public, is extremely different than anyone else who's doing something when they're advertising or putting something out there. We have a higher obligation to make sure that we don't mislead and misinterpret things.
Here goes Norman again. If you're sworn in, can truthfully say you're attorney, and that's true, Norman. Truthfully say you're an attorney, but you know how many clients tell me?
No, you're not getting it. That comparison that Haiti made is not actually the right comparison. The comparison would be, and I know Haiti's frozen. The comparison, Norman, would actually be if you were sworn in as an attorney and then a week later, while you were waiting for your clearance with the bar, they take away your license within a week there. So then you actually go and advertise that you're a former attorney. So then that is, anybody listening to that would think that you're an attorney who practiced law. So the point is like I'm not going to go tit for tat about this, but it's kind of like I don't like when we argue things that are obvious to anyone. If you're going to say I'm a former attorney, anybody listening to it thinks you practice law. If the truth is you were an attorney for 1 week, we took away your license after 1 week of you being an attorney, you would be misleading people if you said I am a former attorney. So Norman could not possibly say that that's not the truth of it. Like, that's obviously, it's about, is there a misrepresentation there? and anyone who, it's what does a reasonable person listening to it think? So that's the difference. It's not, so I know Haiti tried to make an example saying, what if I was an attorney who never practiced, and then could I say that I was a former attorney? That's one situation. That's not what's here. It's literally becoming an attorney a week later without even practicing. They take back your license because they find out that they didn't do a full background check, and your background check comes forward and says you're not qualified to be an attorney, and they take your license away from you. And then you go forward for the next years of your life telling everybody and in a running for something saying, I'm a former attorney. Like, that would be misrepresentation. Like, it's just the way that it is.
You know what? I'm going to concede. That's a better example. Thank you. You phrased that a lot better than I did. But listen, I don't care if she was sworn in. She was really not in, even though she was a sworn law enforcement and she can truthfully say that she was a law enforcement, she really never served as a law enforcement officer.
And that's the thing that gets me, Haiti, that she lied on her mailers. Monique Scott has changed her story. And then all of a sudden now, once people start putting two and two together, because guess what? We're smarter than third graders. Okay. Then the truth started to come out. Once everybody start doing the background, we start pulling her former, you know what I'm saying? We start pulling everything via public information request. Then all of a sudden now she wants to backtrack and retract. The only thing, I would have had more sympathy for her. She would have said,
right,
you know what? Hey guys, I went through the academy, but a health issue caused me
not
to be one of the greatest police officers that Tampa Police Department could have had on their team. But for you to lie, to candor, you know what I'm saying, your experience as a police officer, nah, man, that doesn't fly well with me. And I'm sorry, I don't have zero poops to give about her or Gary Dulgin right now and their lies and their BS. Point blank, period.
Candy,
EERIOD.
We have 10 more minutes. I want Candy to describe her interaction with Monique Scott as a lawyer and her being a prosecutor.
So this was my experience with her, and that's because Haiti is specifically asking me, is that my experience with her was I had a defendant who I just believe that we should always be looking at each case individually and looking at it and saying, okay, what are the facts of this case? And so, yes, there's a scorecard that says we're going to forget about who you are, what you've been through, what has taken place to get you here. That's what a scorecard does, right? It puts all these numbers up and says, this is what you've done before, and this is what it scores. This is what you've done now, and this is what it scores. And so I just believe that to have a justice system that has some type of heart and soul, you've got to also be taking into account those individual things. I remember one of the first things I had learned about in law school was that a prosecutor has the option to charge someone even if all the facts are there. So a perfect example is if they find out that somebody stole some food to feed their family, and the establishment was like, we feel sorry for them, and the state attorney says, listen, I think this is justified in at least some sense, and I don't want to go forward with pursuing these charges. They have the right to do that. And so that means you're taking into account who this person is, what they've been through, that background thing. It shouldn't be the end all be all, but it always should be considered in every situation. And I'm a very firm believer in that. And so when I dealt with her, I just didn't see that. I saw her really saying, this is what the guideline is, and this is what I think the sentence should be in this specific instant. And I've only had one interaction with her, and she was an absolutely sweet human being, but that was just my experience with her individually, and it may be an isolated event, but that's what I felt about it. But to that sentiment is, and that's why I think that this part about it just kind of was gut-wrenching to me when Haiti had approached me about speaking about this, is that her story of being, nothing's worse than being fired from a job. Nothing's worse than if obviously that was your life goal, to be a public servant, to be a police officer, and they ripped that from you and for something that you cannot control. And it's definitely very upsetting. And she obviously filed a lawsuit against the city for an ADA violation. And unfortunately, she lost that on a technicality. And I would say that was very upsetting. And for her to turn that around and then say, you know what, I'm going to law school. So if she turns around and says, I'm going to law school, I'm not going to let this stop me. I'm going to keep on going forward. and I'm still going to fight for people and stand up for them. That to me is so admirable. It's hard to do that, you know, and that is what you should be telling people is like, this is what I've been through. This is what I've done. You can do it too. And I want to be able to explain that in a form or fashion to where I'm sitting on a bench and I can believe that about other people, right? That I can believe that it can get hard and it can get better. I'm going to see people individually. And so it's just upsetting to me when we looked at it from
Candy.
Yes.
Candy.
Yes.
Did we talk today about a case where she didn't want to read the facts or hear about the facts? Did you?
Well, yeah, it just wasn't taken into account the individual facts of the situation.
So you were trying to have her look into the facts of your case, and she didn't want to do that.
Well, I just didn't feel like that was, I didn't feel like she was taking into him. She was like, this is the guideline sentence, and that's what I'm offering. And I had heard a couple other times from a couple other people that was something she had done previous. And so, and it just was, it to me, as the fact that I believe that you should be taking into account those things. And as a judge, you definitely should be taking those into account. That I would hope that if she was taking that position as a judge, she would say, okay, this is what I'm going to do as a judge is I'm going to make sure I don't see people just as a number on a page on a scorecard, because a lot of people have been through a lot of things that sometimes give it that mitigating factor that says we need to look into those to determine where should we potentially make an offer or resolve this case at. So that's what I would hope.
Okay, we have a couple of minutes left. Chris, you want to wrap up because we're going to be signing off in a
I would say with both of these candidates for judge, and I don't think, other than maybe the school board, I don't think there are any more important positions in elective office than the people that we elect to serve on the judiciary. And for the limited information that we are afforded through the course of a campaign for a judicial office in the state of Florida, because of those very limiting canons, for some of the minuscule amount of information to come forth through the actual candidate themselves. It's not as though, we're learning about these candidates and bad things about them because of something one of their opponents said. We're learning these things that are discrepancies or oddities and things that are misleading from their own paid advertising. And if we're learning things about these candidates through their own paid advertising that make us raise an eyebrow and question their authenticity, their sincerity, their honesty, their integrity, their ethics, their transparency, that should be a huge red flag, because these are things that they're saying. It's not even stuff that is being scratched below the surface by their opponents. And so I think that should give people great pause when they learn about these things, however minor the indiscretion may appear to be. When it's about a judicial candidate, you better think long and hard before you vote for those candidates when they have these types of questionable things in their campaign's background.
Okay, thank you so much for joining Chris Ingram, Michelle Williams, Candice Colucci, Haiti Oropesa for Florida U Judge. In the next couple of minutes, 9 o'clock, we're going to come on. Bianca Goolsby is going to come on to discuss Gaither High School, Cindy Stewart, and Henderson. She's going to be on in a couple of minutes. Chris, I got to go. Cameras about.
If I ever run for public office, I want Michelle Williams on my campaign.
I know, right? No, we should literally have him just get in the ring with her. That's really what it needs. Exactly. She's got a lot of questions for him. She wants to know how Gary gets it, how he gets the Black Lives Matter, period.
Thanks, ladies.
Okay. All right. Good night. And
thanks, guys.